a long time ago, in a country far, far away, the tribe of Manasseh inherited the land of Endor.
And today we're going to be talking about which tribes, well, we're not going to talk that much about which tribes got which land, but it is in the book of Joshua where the land of Israel was divided up in the 12 tribes of Israel.
Now, did you catch Endor is one of the planets in Star Wars?
I did catch
Okay. I wasn't sure.
that. It wasn't that subtle, considering we watched Star Wars over the last couple of weeks.
Yep. Well, it's just a thing that surprised me is that's just a something he took from the Bible, I suppose. It's interesting to see how many things in pop culture or in any sort of fantasy or anything is like directly inherited from the Bible. Of course, it's the most translated piece of work, and someone like C.S. Lewis would say that every work of fiction or anything would point to God, but it's cool to see how it can point to some of these more historical type things.
I often think that if I were going to write some fantasy, I could just lift all kinds of names right out of the Bible, because there's just some cool names that are so unusual to us.
Yeah.
So we're in Joshua. Of course, Joshua starts strong with some verses which people have placed on their wall. Verse 6 and 7. Be strong and courageous, for you shall give this people possession of the land which I swore to their fathers to give to them. In verse 7. Only be strong and very courageous. Be careful to do according to all the law which Moses my servant commanded you. Do not turn from it to the right or to the left, so that you may have success wherever you go. The book of the law shall not depart from your mouth. You shall meditate on it day and night, so that you may be careful to do according to all that is written in it. For then you will make your way prosperous, and then you will have success. Be strong and courageous. Turns out, though, that when you read through Joshua, it's not all that important for him to be strong, because consistently through the book of Joshua, it's God that is strong.
Yeah.
It's God that delivers people, that destroys their enemies. But nevertheless, it's good advice. Be strong and courageous, for God is with you.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I was expecting there not to be as much one-to-one contact between Joshua and God. But, the reason was, right at the end of Deuteronomy, and we discussed this, it says that Moses, that since there has not been a prophet in Israel like Moses, whom the Lord knew face to face. But as I was thinking about it, I was a little bit surprised, because in every account of Moses going up to the mountain, Joshua's up there with him.
Right.
And so I was expecting there to be some of that, or I don't know. I don't know what I was expecting, but it's not in there. And it's just a little bit surprising.
So we get to chapter 2, and then we have Rahab, who shelters the spies. A really cool story about how Rahab saves her family and saves the spies. I kind of liked verse 5, that the people of Jericho knew that these men had come, and they had gone to Rahab's house. And she says, it came about when it was time to shut the gate at dark. The men went out. I don't know where they went. Pursue them quickly, for you will overtake them. She's just laying a ruse for them to go a different direction, and she lets the spies out and tells them to go by a different road so they're not caught.
Yeah. Yeah, and even she's giving this hint of, you guys are from this area. These are foreigners.
Yeah.
You'll be able to get them easily because it's dark out. It always interests me why do these spies go to a prostitute? And why is that just like a throwaway thing? It's not counted against them as evil or anything. It's just they go and stay with a prostitute, and it's actually counted to her as good.
Yeah. So I think that there's something different about prostitutes or harlots that we don't really understand, because it's the Old Testament is it's rife with these harlots, these temple prostitutes that it seems just that's normal.
Yeah.
We think of it as the underside of the law or something, and pretty evil.
Yeah.
But somehow it was different.
Right. And yeah, I think even of the story of Judah and Tamar, his daughter-in-law, right, who she doesn't get a son from. She births no children from Judah's first two children, and she pretends to, she prostitutes herself out to Judah, and when it comes time for him to pay her, he can't find her, and then like the way the story ends is it's counted wrong against Judah, not because he went and visited a prostitute, but because he didn't provide for his daughter-in-law.
Yeah.
And it's not counted wrong against her because it wasn't.
Right.
Because she was just trying to get what was rightfully hers, I suppose.
Yeah. So Rahab, the harlot or the prostitute, somehow in the generations since then, there's a different perspective on what that means and how we respond to them.
Yeah, it's interesting. I do notice for Rahab, it does not say that she's a cult prostitute or that she's a prostitute for another god. And I was wondering if that might have some significance there of like, maybe there's some difference between a person who's just selling their body compared to a person who's selling their body for the sake of another god.
Yeah, could be. I don't know.
It's interesting though because despite all of that, and all the unknowns, there is the known thing, which is that she fears God.
Right.
And she wants to love God. And that's enough. We talked about the bronze serpent and it being enough to look at the bronze serpent and be healed. And it seems like it's enough for Rahab that she looks upon God and has fear and awe in her heart. And I mean, she has good words she says about God.
Yeah.
She says, as soon as we heard it, our hearts melted, and there is no spirit left in any man because of you. For the Lord your God, he is God in the heavens above and on the earth beneath. Just like powerful language about God and how he is described, even by someone who doesn't know God.
Yep. That's just an introduction. They've sent these spies into the land. We're not going to come back to Jericho until chapter 6. So we got chapter 3 where they cross into Jordan. They cross the Jordan. Interesting how they do that. There's the Jordan, like the Red Sea. It's a big deal about the Red Sea. We don't hear so much about. The same thing happened at the Jordan, this time with Joshua leading and the Ark of the Covenant.
For me, reading through this, I felt very impacted by it. It felt like reading the description, I thought, wow, this is a powerful way that they're crossing the river. Now, I've not been to the Jordan River. Have you?
Yep.
Is it a big river? Do you imagine yourself being able to walk across it?
The spot where I was at is a place where they believe that Jesus was baptized.
Okay.
And
so deep enough to dip a human in.
Oh yeah, but at that particular spot, narrow enough that even not being a strong swimmer, I could easily have made it across the river. The current wasn't that strong, and recognized that this is, in the year 2000 and something, well after Jesus was baptized, and well after they crossed the Jordan, and we don't know exactly where they crossed the Jordan, but in my view, it was a small snapshot.
But it's probably not like the Mississippi River, which is a mile wide.
No, I don't think it was that wide.
So, I guess for me, I've always thought of it as kind of a strong creek, and maybe that's an unfair way to view it. But I guess even thinking, we live right next to the Colorado River, pretty near the head of it, and it's a pretty strong river. You could swim across it.
Yeah.
And
I would say, where I was at, probably at least as wide as the Colorado River where we are here.
okay, yeah.
Far enough that you
You don't want to carry your house.
You don't want to carry your house, and it would have been a really good stone's throw, but capable for the guys who can throw really far.
Yeah, so I think what was powerful to me is not necessarily, they don't describe the river, of course, not very well. That's why I have all these questions, right? But for me, what was powerful is the idea that everyone has to pass by the Ark of the Covenant.
Yeah.
That it's an army processional where everyone's carrying everything they have past the Ark of the Covenant, where everyone gets consecrated first, and so everything needs to be holy, and then we're going to pass by God, and He is the gate to Israel, to the promised land. That it would be a lot less powerful. It would be almost nothing if they just walk in, and it's their normal travel. Even with the cloud, the cloud guiding them, I feel like that would be a lot less powerful than everyone has to stop, bless everything that you have, and the Ark of the Covenant. God Himself is standing there, sitting on His mercy seat, watching you cross the threshold into your new land.
Yeah, pretty cool way to enter a new land.
Yeah. I guess that's how I imagine going into heaven. That it's everything stops. The waters well up behind God as He watches over us walking in.
And this goes back to the talking about remembering. In chapter 4, they take up 12 stones from the middle of the Jordan, and they set up a pillar to say this is where we came across, and the 12 being because there's 12 tribes, and just a testimony to remember.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add about chapter 4. I think chapter 5 is really interesting. We had talked about circumcision of the heart before.
Yep.
And just circumcision in general, kind of a weird thing. But, now maybe we have a little bit of reason why these people are circumcised.
But we don't have a reason why they haven't already been circumcised.
Yeah.
Why in the wandering of the wilderness did they not circumcise?
Yeah.
But they didn't, and so they come in, and this is again, it's an act of consecration. It's a recognition that we are God's people. It's God's seal on us.
Yeah, it seems like, at least it says, and this is the reason why Joshua circumcised him. All the males of the people who came out of Egypt, all the men of war had died. So in some way, the circumcision prepares them for war.
Yeah.
That maybe it's just when you have that sort of pain, anything in war seems easy. Like, yeah, you stabbed me, but I had my foreskin chopped off.
Okay. So we get into chapter 6, and it's the conquest of Jericho. If you're listening to this, you probably no doubt have heard of the conquest of Jericho, that they walk around the city for 7 days. On the seventh day, they blow trumpets, and they walk around it 7 times, and Jericho is conquered. An obvious sign of God being at work.
Yeah.
I thought of the people in Jericho watching the people of Israel walking around the city. Okay, what are they doing? All these people are walking around the city. Oh, they're doing it again, and they're doing it. What on earth are they doing? Are they looking for a crack in the wall? And then the seventh day comes, and it all falls apart.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because there's an implication at the end of chapter 5. The commander of the Lord's army comes, and he says that he has come. Then there's some implication that there's, that the Lord's army is with Joshua. But it's kind of a throwaway passage. Joshua is sitting there. He looks up, and he sees a guy with a sword drawn, and he says, "Who are you? Are you going to kill us? Are you...
Force
are you going to help us?" And the guy says, "No." but I am the commander of the army of the Lord. And I think that's a funny response, just because, are you for us or against us? No. I'm not for you. I'm not against you. I'm for God.
Yeah, I didn't really catch that, but that's a good insight.
And Joshua falls on his face, and mine says worshipped and said to him, what does my Lord say to his servant? And the commander says, take off your shoes. The place you're standing is holy. And so I'm imagining now Joshua and the people of Israel are marching around to Jericho shoeless because the land is holy. And maybe I'm imagining that for the whole rest of this chapter, or of this book, that the whole time they're shoeless. I don't think so. But
yeah, I kind of doubt it,
but it's an interesting thought because, just at the end of Deuteronomy, it talks about, I didn't let your feet swell up in your sandals. I kept you so healthy, but now they're in the Holy Land. Where you were standing is holy. Take off your sandals. Reminiscent of what God says to Moses at the burning bush.
Yeah.
Take off your sandals. You're in a holy spot. And then now march around.
Yeah.
Spend the next 7 days marching around a city. And I don't know if they're, if he's keeping his sandals off this whole time, but it's just not mentioned again.
And that's it's okay for your imagination, but since it's not mentioned, we don't know.
Yeah.
And but it's an interesting idea, and mostly we get from chapter 6 that it wasn't the people's strength that caused the walls of Jericho to fall. It wasn't because they shouted loud enough and blew trumpets loud enough. It's that God was at work.
Yeah.
And then in chapter 7, of course, the people think, hey, we did a good job. Let's go ahead and attack Ai. That's not artificial intelligence. That's the name of a city. And Joshua says, don't do it. God hasn't told us to. Oh, no, we're good enough. We can do. And what they find out is they can't. And then...
I'm confused. You said Joshua tells them not to go?
Yeah.
Where do you see that?
Okay.
I see in verse 3, Joshua sent men from Jericho to Ai, which is near Bethaven, east of Bethel, and said to them, go up and spy out the land. And the men went up and spied out Ai. And they returned to Joshua, and they said to him, do not have all the people go up, but only 2,000 or 3,000 men go up and attack. Do not make the whole people toil, for they are few. So 3,000 people went up.
You're right. It wasn't Joshua. It was the spies. But Joshua takes kind of ownership in that. And you get to verse 7. He says, alas, O Lord God, why did you ever bring this people over the Jordan, only to deliver us into the hand of the Amorites and to destroy us? If only we had been willing to dwell beyond the Jordan. There's Joshua complaining. Yeah. Anyway.
He says, what can I say when Israel has turned their backs before their enemies? And now we're running away. What am I supposed to say? How am I supposed to be strong and courageous in the face of you clearly turning against us? Everyone's going to hear of it, and they're going to surround us and kill us. What will you do for your name?
So then God, going into chapter 8, they have this issue with they eventually conquest. What did they conquest in chapter 7?
In chapter 7, they don't conquest anyone. In chapter 7, they failed. And then the Lord says to Joshua, get up, why have you fallen on your face? I like God's answer to Joshua's sadness. Get up, why are you sad?
Oh, I know, it was because...
because they killed Achan.
Yeah, and Achan took that which he should not have taken.
Yeah, he took a beautiful cloak, 200 shekels of silver, a bar of gold weighing 50 shekels, and he coveted them and took them.
Okay. where did he take them from?
From Jericho.
Jericho isn't conquered until the
Chapter
next
6.
Oh, is it chapter 6? Okay. My bad.
And you're supposed to be the professional.
Yeah, well, maybe it's
I'm
because
just
I'm
teasing.
tired.
I'm teasing.
I know you are. It doesn't matter. I can tease you too. So what's the lesson of Ai?
Yeah, I mean, you got to have God with you. Don't be a sinner.
Yep. And also, the sin of Achan is an interesting sin, and this is something which comes up towards the end of Joshua, that the sin of one can impact everybody.
Yeah.
Chapter 8, they actually end up conquering Ai, and in verses 34 and 35, they've conquered Ai, and then afterward he read all the words of the law, the blessing and the curse, according to all that was written in the book of the law. There was not a word of all that Moses had commanded which Joshua did not read before all the assembly of Israel, with women and the little ones and the strangers who were living among them. Mm-hmm. Now, depending on how you read that, all of Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, and Deuteronomy and Numbers, that was a lot of reading. Even if you just say, oh, it was only Deuteronomy, that's still a lot of reading.
Yeah.
Bringing people to remember.
Yeah.
So then we get into chapter 9, and I had 3 verses here. Mm-hmm. 15, this is where the Gibeonites trick Joshua, and they dress in worn out stuff, and just so they can kind of get a truce with Joshua. Mm-hmm. And Joshua made peace with them, made a covenant with them to let them live, and the leaders of the congregation swore an oath to them. And then verses 20 and 21.
Well, I think it's interesting, verse 14. So the men took some of their provisions, but did not ask counsel from the Lord. And Joshua made peace with them. And I just thought that was an interesting thing. At this point, the Lord has basically told them, go in and wipe out all the people. And, now these people are deceiving them into joining the assembly, basically. And they are unwise enough to not ask counsel from the Lord before letting these people in.
Good point. And those people eventually become slaves to the Israelites.
Yeah.
We're not going to do them harm. They're going to let them live. So the wrath of God would not be upon us for the oath they took. And they let them live, became hewers of wood and drawers of water for the whole congregation.
Yeah.
So I wonder if they had iron axe heads that were well attached.
Yeah. You would hope that they were well attached.
Yep.
I thought that was interesting too because, just a little bit later it's interesting because then they come in to save the Gibeonites.
Yeah. They became not just the hewers of wood and drawers of water, but someone that Israel is going to defend.
Yeah. And I guess you get to wonder how much of a defense is it? Israel's already planned on killing all these people. It's just like, oh, yeah, sure, we'll do that now.
Good point. Chapter 10, the kings are starting to recognize that Israel's coming, and they're banding together. And you get to verse 9, and I thought this was interesting because Joshua came upon them suddenly by marching all night.
Yeah.
That seems like a oxymoron. Suddenly by marching all night. But the Lord confounded them before Israel, and he slew them with a great slaughter. And Israel pursued them. And they fled from before Israel. And let's see. And at the end of verse 11, there were more who died from the hailstones than those whom the sons of Israel killed with the sword.
Yeah.
So who was the victor?
Yeah, God.
It was God.
And even with Israel doing everything they can to be killing, God is still able, still more powerful.
Yeah. So the rest of chapter 10 is all about conquering different kings and battles and how God always brings out brings them to victory. So I'm pushing into chapter 11, and I particularly liked verse 18. Joshua waged war a long time with all these kings.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting too.
And we aren't really given a timeline of how long this was, but it was a long time.
Yeah, and it feels like almost if Joshua's writing this, which he might be, or it might be someone else. It might be Ezra or whoever else. It seems like the author might have a skewed view of how much a long time is, because so many of these wars are God made the sun stand still for 10 minutes.
Right.
It goes dark for 10 minutes and we kill everyone, and like that's our average war. And so now, it could be they make war for a week, and that's like, oh, that's a long war you're doing.
Yeah. But even having said that, in verse 18, same chapter, verse 23, the end of the chapter, thus the land had rest from war.
Yeah.
So the first 11 chapters of Joshua are the conquering of the promised land.
Yeah.
And also in verse in chapter 11, verse 22, there were no Anakim left in the land of the sons of Israel. Only in Gaza, in Gath, and Ashdod some remained. And Gath, or Goth, where did Goliath come from? From Gath.
Yeah.
So, there's, he could have been considered one of the Anakim or the Anakim, the giants. So they have conquered the land. Verse at the end of chapter 11, and chapter 12 recounts all the kings that not all of them, but most of the kings that they had conquered.
Basically just a big long list of names.
Yep.
I was wondering, is chapter 12 the first time Galilee is mentioned?
It might be. I recognize that also, that we saw Galilee in there.
It's definitely in this book that the first time Galilee is mentioned,
yeah.
but I didn't, I guess, take great care to check if it's chapter 12 or if it's before that. Just at least one of the kings is from the King of Galilee. So,
so chapter 13, I thought it was interesting. Verse 1, Joshua was old and advanced in years when the Lord said to him, "You're old and advanced in years, and very much of the land remains to be possessed," which is kind of interesting because the wars are over. They're at peace, but they haven't possessed all of the land. And then it's going to go on in chapter 13 talking about the land which has not been possessed yet, until you get to verse 22. The sons of Israel killed Balaam, the son of Beor, the diviner, with a sword among the rest of their slain. This is the Balaam whose donkey talked to him. And now, when they come into the promised land, Balaam ends up being killed by the Israelites.
So on one hand, he's this holy guy who cannot say anything that the Lord does not command him to say. But on the other hand, he's also a practicer of divination and is living in the wrong spot, I guess.
Yeah.
So, at some level, he wasn't able to say, like, "Hey, God, can you actually not kill me? Like, remember how I love you?" So in whatever way, he didn't have those inclinations.
Yep. So then we move into chapter 14. Caleb, one of the two spies that came back with a positive report.
Yeah. I thought this was interesting because it's Caleb and Joshua who go up as spies.
Yes.
And 10 other guys.
Right.
But they come back, and they're the only two that are honoring God. But Caleb says, "I was 40, and it's been 45 years. Can I have this land Moses promised to me?"
Which, by the way, gives you an indicator that to this point in Joshua, it's been 5 years since the beginning of the book, because he was 40 when he went in to spy. Then there's 40 more years in the wilderness, and then at least if I understand the chronology correct. So about 5 years have been spent to this point, up to chapter 14 in the text. Now go on about Caleb.
I just thought it's interesting. He says, Moses promised me this land, and he says, I'm still as strong today as I was in the day that Moses sent me. My strength now is as my strength was then, because of war and because of coming and going.
Yeah,
And-
I thought that was cool.
But then he also says, so give me this hill country of which the Lord spoke on the day, for you heard on that day how the Anakim were there. And I just thought that's interesting. You heard on that day how the Anakim were there with great fortified cities. But Joshua was there to spy.
Yeah. Joshua and Caleb were the ones who reported it.
Yeah.
Yeah, good point. And Caleb is rewarded with the land that he requested. And then I go on to now they're talking about they are dividing up the land, and the most of the rest of Joshua is the dividing of the land to the various tribes.
Yeah, which means it's a lot of names, and it's hard to read.
Yeah,
It's, I think, almost harder to read than pretty much any genealogy, because this is city names that don't exist today,
yep,
that are, if Ezra is the one who wrote this, he's writing it saying, here are the current city names. And if it's Joshua, those are those current city names.
Right.
So it's thousands of years old, and we don't really know when these cities are or exactly where they are, and it's just complete mush. It's babble.
yeah. You have whole verses that are just three names: Anab and Eshtemoa and Anim, Mahan, Carmel, and Ziph and Juttah.
Yeah, and you recognize, okay, Carmel. I know about Mount Carmel.
Yep.
But then you're just left, where is Libnah, Ether, Ashan, Ifta, Ashna, Nezib?
I had considered trying to get bring out a map and try to see where all these cities are, and said, wait, no, that can't be done. Well, maybe somebody has written up some fanciful one, but nearly impossible to map out the borders of each of the territories, which we're going to read about in the next, 10 chapters. I did note at the end of chapter 15 something which I just said, why not? Because it says, as for the Jebusites, the inhabitants of Jerusalem, the sons of Judah could not drive them out. So the Jebusites live with the sons of Judah at Jerusalem until this day. My question was, why couldn't they drive them out? What was the issue there? And it comes up again in chapter 16, verse 10, where it said they could not drive out the Canaanites who live in Gezer, so the Canaanites live in the midst of Ephraim to this day.
Yeah. It's interesting because it happens a few different times where it just says, and they weren't able to do this. Or I guess in 16:10 they did not drive out is what mine says.
Yeah.
But they did not and could not. What's the difference, and why do we care?
Yeah.
It's just interesting. It seems like almost random, and I guess for me, the saving grace for that is like Deuteronomy 7, that God loves the people of Israel not because they're great, not because they're righteous, but because he loves them. And maybe it's just the same way with these other people, that he saves them not because they're great, not because they're able to withstand God's great power, but because he decided not to.
Yep. That ends repeated again, by the way, in chapter 17, verse 13. The Israelites became strong, and they put the Canaanites to forced labor, but he did not drive them out completely.
Yeah.
That's an interesting sidelight there, especially when in the conquering of the cities and the kings, they were to destroy them completely.
Yeah. Destroy them so much that they're not taking any of their gold and silver, and you're not taking any of their livestock. And you wonder too, it says they did not drive them out. You did not utterly drive them out. Does that mean, is that a failing of the Israelites?
Right. Were they disobedient?
Some sin that they're doing.
Yeah. Chapter 18, we're going for?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this one I thought was a really interesting passage, and a huge responsibility. So Joshua says, provide for yourselves 3 men from each tribe that I can, and those 3 people, so it's going to be 36 guys.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to go into the land, the land they've conquered, and they're going to divvy it up.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, now we've already had Judah and Manasseh, their land mapped out.
Yeah.
And so there's 7 more tribes that haven't had their land mapped out.
Mm-hmm.
These 36 guys are going to go and map it out,
Mm-hmm.
and then they're going to come back and they're going to cast lots.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing that those guys with massive committee meetings
Mm-hmm.
they had to try really hard to figure out what would be a fair allotment.
Yeah.
Because it couldn't be that just because one tribe was bigger, they got more representation, and they could choose the choice plots. It's like when I was growing up, we had this rule: if my brother and I were going to have a piece of cake, and there was only one piece left, a quarter or a third of the cake left, one of us got to cut it, and the other one got to pick which one they wanted.
Mm-hmm.
It made it so you tried really hard to
Make it even.
make it even. And I'm guessing that's what these guys are doing. We're going to make this even. We're going to make it so that everybody has a fair chance of getting good land.
Yeah.
So that's chapter 19. That's right. Wasn't that 19?
That was 18.
18.
But yeah, I mean, 18. The second half is the inheritance for Benjamin, and Simeon, then Zebulun, then Issachar.
Yeah, and 1821 I thought was interesting. Benjamin got Jericho.
Yeah, and it's interesting because earlier it says nobody should rebuild Jericho.
Right.
So
Right.
It's unclear what that means, or it's unclear to me at least.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just a landmark. I mean,
Right. I'm guessing it's
they
just
get
a
the area
landmark.
of Jericho.
Right.
I thought it's interesting. They often say they got the cities and all the villages surrounding it.
Yep,
But
and
I
then
like that way of describing the metropolitan area. The city of New York and all the villages near it.
So then we have in chapter 19 the territory of Simeon. And verse 9, the inheritance of the sons of Simeon was taken from the portion of the sons of Judah, for the share of the sons of Judah was too large for them.
Yeah.
So, and remember, Judah was given that before the 36 guys mapped out the countryside.
Yeah.
Just an interesting note. I don't know how important it is, but something that caught my eye.
Mm-hmm.
And I go all the way to chapter 21 now, because these are the territory of Asher and Naphtali and Dan. In verse 20, in chapter 20, there are the cities of refuge. Remember the places you go if you've unintentionally killed somebody, and before a trial to find out if you're really guilty.
Yeah. The only thing I thought was interesting is Joshua gets his own inheritance.
Yeah.
That, he's a part of his own tribe, which regrettably I don't remember right now. But aside from being a part of his own tribe, he also, his family gets its own inheritance. And it's not as big of an inheritance, of course, as the tribes, but he does get Timnath Serah in the hill country of Ephraim and rebuilds that city. So his family gets that city, it seems like. Which is, the tribes are all a family, right? They're all descended from one son of Israel, but it's interesting because now it's been about 500 years since Jacob was alive, since Israel was alive.
Yep.
And because they spent 430 years in Egypt, and now it's been 85 years.
Yeah.
Give or 45 years at least, however many. So I was just thinking about that, especially going into one of the future verses that I had in mind. yeah, the cities of refuge in chapter 20, and then 21 is interesting, the allotment for the children of Levi.
Some cities in each of the different territories. And I thought it was interesting that they didn't just get the city, but they got grazing land around the city.
Yeah.
Which I thought was pretty good.
I thought that was nice. It also gave me an idea that they are that they're shepherds to the people of Israel. That they're going to have these, goats and sheep and ox to be, to be sacrifices. They have a morning and evening sacrifice that the Levitical priests are going to be giving, and with that they get to, shepherd the people of Israel towards God.
And then you come again to verse 44 of chapter 21, and the Lord gave them rest on every side. Yeah. We're coming to the end of the conquering of the Promised Land, and also coming close to the end of the book of Joshua.
Yeah.
Chapter 22, the conquering is over, and the half tribe of Manasseh, the Reubenites and Gadites are allowed to go back home on the other side of the Jordan.
My understanding is they weren't not allowed to be in Israel.
No,
they just were given land by Moses east of the Jordan.
They actually asked for it, and Moses said, "Yeah, you can do that. You can have your land here, but you have to come and fight with the rest of the tribes." And now the wars are over, so they're going back, and the nation has rest, and they're charged to obey the commands, and then they get everybody else ticked off.
Yeah, it's interesting because, they call them their brothers.
Yep.
But, as we were saying, it's 500 years since some of these people were related. So it's a long time. It's, they're a tribe of 1 million people, maybe, is the group of Israel. And, in numbers, it numbers them as 650,000. And I was saying maybe that's just the men. But they're a large group of people far removed from this familial connection, and the people of Israel inside the walls of the Jordan River are willing to say, like, "Oh, let's go to war because of this altar."
Right. And that I thought I think they learned the lesson of Achan.
Yeah.
That, if one person, one tribe messes up, we're all going to face the consequences.
You're going to destroy us all.
Yeah. Which is pretty amazing, and it's not the way that we think at all.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, they bring back up Achan in this chapter, and so they get it. They understand that there's a communal impact of all of our activities.
Yeah. And it's interesting too. For me, it's a great sight of their love for God, too. Because even though it is a removed familial connection, it is still a familial connection.
Yep.
And not just that, but it's people that they've fought in wars with and died alongside, right?
And I think a lot of times, if I've read this correctly, the Reubenites and Gadites were at the head of the battle.
Yeah.
They were the ones making the first charge, and they made the charge, but God did the work. And then the 2.5 tribes, they respond to the rest of the Israelites' anger at them building this altar by saying, "No, this is not an altar for us to offer sacrifices.
Yeah.
This is just meant to be a witness between us and you and the generations to come."
Yeah.
Again, that theme of we need to remember. Remember what's happened before. And then Israelites say, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
That's a great answer.
Yeah.
We should have thought of that. I thought it's interesting. What does verse 34 say for you?
The sons of Reuben and the sons of Gad called the altar witness. For, they said, it is a witness between us that the Lord is God. Interesting thing is that witness and they said are both in italics.
Oh, interesting. Mine is not in italics, but witness is capitalized. I just thought it's interesting because up until this point, things have been named for what they are. Bethel is named for being the spring, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, there's all these other ones that I surely couldn't remember because I don't speak Hebrew.
Right.
But this one's not written in Hebrew.
True.
Not Kiliath Gilad or anything weird like that. Is for whatever reason the translators have decided we're going to translate this word and not put it as a footnote.
Yeah, that I actually looked to see whether there's a footnote and there wasn't.
Yeah, it's just interesting because I don't understand why they would do that, or I don't understand why they wouldn't translate the other ones and leave them for a footnote. They're not calling it in English witness.
Right.
They're calling it, in ancient Hebrew. So, Aramaic or whatever language it is. So,
good observation. Now we're coming to the end of the life of Joshua. Mm-hmm. Chapter 23, it came about after many days when the Lord had given rest to Israel from all her enemies on every side, and Joshua's old, advanced in years. I mean, we've heard this a couple of times. This guy is, he's older than me, which is hard to believe.
Yeah.
But he's going to address the nation. And he says, verse 8, "You are to cling to the Lord your God as you have done to this day."
Mm-hmm.
In verse 11, "Take diligent heed to yourselves to love the Lord your God." Just good, solid comments saying, cling to God.
Yeah, all the good things the Lord your God promised concerning you have been fulfilled for you. And also, the Lord will bring upon you all the evil things until he has destroyed from you, until he has destroyed you from this good land that the Lord has given you. If you transgress the covenant of the Lord your God, which he commanded you, and go and serve other gods and bow down to them, then the anger of the Lord will be kindled against you, and you shall perish quickly from off the good land that he has given to you. It's so entrenched in the goodness of God and the goodness that he's given you, and also in the idea that God is not going to let you be evil in his good land.
And he's not going to let you disobey him without trying to draw you back.
Yeah.
That's remember, that's part of why God brings the curses upon them,
mm-hmm.
is not just to punish them, but to spur them to come back to God.
Yeah.
So in chapter 24, Joshua reviews the history of Israel, which we've just read. And we
a few times even.
Yeah, a few times. And we come again to another verse from Joshua, which ends up on people's walls. Well, they don't tend to quote it all, but Joshua 24:15 is where it says, "Choose for yourselves today whom you will serve. But as for me and my God, we will serve the Lord." That's what we typically have. In my house, we will serve the Lord. That's what we typically have on our wall. But the total verse is, "If it is disagreeable in your sight to serve the Lord, choose for yourselves today whom you will serve, whether the gods which your fathers served, which were beyond the river, or the gods of the Amorites in whose land you are dwelling. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." It's good to read some things in context.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a beautiful verse, choose for yourself today whom you will serve, but as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. That's concise, but it leaves out the alternative.
Mm-hmm.
If it's disagreeable to you, if you don't want to do it, choose.
Mm-hmm.
You have the choice.
Yeah, and it's also a remembrance. Remember, Abraham, his father was serving other gods, and God took him from beyond the river, and the people of this land were serving other gods. You have many options of other gods to serve, whether it be from your fathers or from the people who used to have this land. But you need to choose if you want to serve God.
So we come to the end. Joshua dies. And interesting in verse 31, Israel served the Lord all the days of Joshua and all the days of the elders who survived Joshua and had known all the deeds of the Lord which he had done for Israel.
Yeah.
That, we're gonna find pretty soon that there's no one left that walked with Joshua, and that's just
it shows that Joshua was able to walk with God, or at least to see Moses see God face to face. That God wasn't speaking directly to Joshua, but just being there was enough for Joshua to be the strong and courageous man who was able to lead the people well and keep them in line with God's will.
Yeah.
It's interesting to me that the writer feels pretty confident that after 400 years they found the exact burial place that Jacob had bought and were able to put Joseph and his bones in that cave.
It's just interesting also that he still had those bones. They're still carrying these things around until they can find the spot to bury them.
No offense to you, but I'm not going to have my children carry your bones for 400 years.
Well, I'm thinking I'll be cremated, and you can just store my ashes in an urn and have to carry that around. No, I don't really want you to do that.
Cremate you and then hydraulic press you into a diamond.
Yeah,
and
give it to your fiance. And and then tell her.
Give it to my son to propose with. This is my grandfather's ring. What do you mean your grandfather's ring?
Okay. So we finished Joshua, and next time up we're going to hit Judges, where we'll find a whole new set of activities that have moved us beyond Moses and Joshua, and now we're in the Promised Land, and see how the people ultimately continue to live.
Yeah, new challenges. The challenge up until now was, who is God going to choose? That's the first part of Genesis. And then, now that the people are chosen, how is God going to give them the land? For Abraham, it's how is he going to give me a kid? And up until Abraham's old age, and then after that, it's when are we going to inherit this land, and what is that going to look like? But now that's all done with. God's done his promises, and there's still more of those promises to come. That part of the promise is that the people of Israel will be a light unto the world.
Right.
That they will be the saving grace. That they will be God's chosen people to tell people about God. And we'll see if they're able to do that. And the answer is no. But we'll see how they fail and what that means.
Yep. And how God responds. And that's part of what we've been leading at this point. There's things they're supposed to do, there's things they're not supposed to do, and if you don't obey God, then certain things are going to happen. If you do, then you get blessed.
Yeah.
So we'll see you on another day, and hope that you're enjoying this. God bless.